the logicality of the human mind, can at once open the world around us to our gaze and our wonderment, and can also delve into the relationships between the words and symbols that we use to describe that world. But it can also create its own chains, its own heaven or hell, to paraphrase John Milton. Thus, rationality, a way of being in the world that applies reason to problems, can take humanity far, very far, as we see with the most ingenious machines and technologies. And some technologies can be turned on people in war. Reason can also be twisted into sophistry, propaganda, mind control, and a host of horrific beliefs that spin on thin rationalizations and excuses to unleash the most depraved and violent of forces. Of course, we can reply that sophistry, excuses, rationalizations can all be defeated with reasoned argument, since they tend to be, by their very nature, unreasonable and irrational. Yet so often, people fall for the dramatic play of words and meanings and end up falling into dark actions and even darker societies. In the 1700s, reason and rationality were the fashionable methods and attributes of intellectual circles across Europe. It was a period that became known as the Age of Reason, one which sought to push the frontiers of human understanding into and beyond the world and into the heavens. The emerging scientific method was to thrust humanity into a new golden age, a dream of so many since the fall of the rebel angels in the Judaic-Christian tradition, or from the golden age that the ancient Greeks pined for. Reason and logic and their handmaids of mathematics and science opened up so many doors, and just as infinity was accepted as a concept in mathematics, so too was the potential for the human mind. But is there a limit? For over a century, the scientific community has been presented, sometimes by scientists, but more often than not by non-scientists, as the ultimate paradigm that humanity can aspire to. To not just gain knowledge, but also to provide solutions to world, social, and personal psychological problems. Yet over a century ago, the American philosopher William James warned about what we call scientism, the concern that science would be the new religion, to which we should all bow in supplication and reverence. Now, stick an ism on the end of the word, and it takes on the comportment of a dogmatic religion. Science is no exception, when the idea of expanding knowledge is cut down to an ism. And philosophically, science, which just means knowledge, is subject to the constraints that the human mind is subject to. In other words, as we seek to explore that which is extramental, the body, others, the world, the universe, etc., we are doing so with tools that we create. Perhaps we can invoke as an analogy the ancient Greek philosopher Xenophanes, who quipped, "But mortals, suppose that gods are born, wear their own clothes, and have a voice and a body. Ethiopians say that their gods are snub-nosed and black, Thracians that theirs are blue-eyed and red-haired. But if horses or oxen or lions had hands, or could draw with their hands and accomplish such works as men, horses would draw the figures of the gods as similar to horses, and the oxen as similar to oxen, and they would make the bodies of the sort which each of them had." And so we may place the scientist, the logician of impeccable rationality in the holy of holies, and subject ourselves to an understanding of the world based on our understanding of the world. That is, rationality cannot transcend it. We may as well place a large mirror on the altar and glory in our own being. This critique, poetical on purpose, implies that reason has a limit, and what constitutes that limit has frustrated the greatest minds who have sought to reduce the immensity of the world to words, or to symbols, as the logical positivists sought, or to mathematical relationships, as certain schools of physics have entertained. Probably the most frustrating comment I have read several times was from Professor Stephen Hawking, who, in a few of his books, commented that basically philosophy is dead, ironically mimicking Nietzsche's famous phrase that God is dead, and that philosophy was far behind physics. Really though? If we peer into any major discussion that physicists have, indeed Hawking's own views on the nature of reality, we find philosophical conjectures all over his writings. He sought to mathematize the universe and its phenomena, and he was not the first, nor will he be the last. Yet such conjecturers, or magicians, will always be defeated. Once we begin considering, hypothesizing, wondering even, we are creating beliefs, and these beliefs may or may not match, to some extent or less if they do, the actual reality of what is. We sometimes stand in awe of science, which means we stand in awe of ourselves. The Greeks warned us about this. It is called narcissism, staring at our own achievements as being the universe. The mirror at the altar is our greatest danger. Except we can breach the veil of our own arrogance. The value of humility reminds us of our disposition to make mistakes, but the very nature of science has its own built-in humility device, which is just the act of recalling that science is knowledge and not a new set of commandments, which in turn implies that the scientific realm is organic and open to freedom of discussion, growth and change. When scientists or others have shut the door on alternative thinkers, different hypotheses, extraordinary conjectures, provocative questioning, or just plain curiosity, then the candle of reason is snuffed out and science is zombified or even dies. And it has certainly not been rationally minded to close the doors on others' thinking, no matter how irksome and pertinacious they may sound, paraphrasing David Hume. Yet in recent years, certain politically minded scientists, to provide a working description, have acted to close doors on critical, open-minded, free discussion on various subject areas. In fact, rather than pointing a finger at any particular topic, you may think of your own. It won't be difficult to find any area of science that has not or is not plagued by irrationality, egoism, and the closing of the mind to new challenges, and even old ones that have not quite gone away. And knowledge, tied by rationality and logic, and finding the basis for argument in the evidence as provided by our senses as far as we can trust them, reaches into so many areas that there is not a single path of procedure whose rules are set in stone, except to keep on questioning, keep searching, keep experimenting, keep looking, keeping an open mind, testing counterfactual examples and alternative hypotheses, and then to look differently, learn from a different perspective, or to listen what a different discipline has to offer, and do it all again the next day. And to teach each new generation of students. That's what we do. That's what progress is about. Indeed, the best science stretches the capabilities of the human mind to its greatest, but in so doing manifests another limit in that it runs the constant risk of becoming increasingly attenuated, pulled from the reality it purports to explain. When science meets application, engineering, technology, the results can be still incredible and helpful and visible, and hence they meet a powerful feedback loop. The rocket either works or it doesn't. But the visible results, or popularly accepted theoretical explorations, do not alter the limits we face using our reasoning skills to reach out and grasp the world's nature. For when we theorize, we necessarily abstract ourselves from the world into new worlds of our own creation. And so we may miss so much about life and people around us that we become disembodied. Not like saints or great avatars who teach from the higher planes of being and consciousness, we could say, but just thoroughly disconnected from what is in front of our eyes. The tearful friend, the excited child, the neighbour's ambition or shopkeeper's diligent displays, the dark impending nature of death all around, the miracle of the splitting cell, and from what is beautiful and what touches beyond the veil of the visible worlds, to connect or to reconnect to the source of all life and love. The poets and spiritualists have made well-trodden paths into the ineffable, that which cannot be spoken of, the worlds that cannot be so readily assimilated into human language and symbol, worlds that are experienced and then portrayed figuratively, metaphorically, sometimes with words that hint at the meanings between them, or with the power of music and dance even, or just plain love. To be in a rational world implies a sense of being or consciousness that is, when it is not twisted for egotistical or evil ends, subtly peaceful, explorative, and exhilarating in its explorations, for the rationalist seeks to inform as much as reduce the world's mysteries and complexities to the realm of human understanding and logic. Yet there are alternative ways of being that leave reason and logic behind. Beneath reason, as it were, the world of mind, it exists in realms in which baser thoughts and emotions embed us in a more animalistic, reactive and primitive existence, for sure. But above us are what the sages call the paths to enlightenment, in which the veils of the world we produce with our beliefs and prejudices and programming shift, and we gain glimpses of the other side, or sides, as it may be. There we turn to those who have crossed the threshold of reason to enjoy being in the world in a different state. Just like we can imagine that a two-dimensional being may feel when plucked out into a three-dimensional world and is suddenly aware of up and down. Suddenly aware that there is more than the mere constructs of the brain's capacities to know and to reason. Yet even if we have not felt that realm, for it does not require rationality in order to exist or just be, then we can proceed along the path of logic and word and symbol to help us help ourselves and to help others within this world that we have to negotiate and survive, but recognise, or at least humbly acknowledge, that although we may unfurl the path ahead of us with expanded knowledge, we know it's a path of our own making. Step off that path even for a moment, we know it deep inside in a sense of knowingness, that all we experience and all we think is not all that there is. And we kid ourselves that we do not know or cannot know something so fundamental about ourselves, for when we accept that we may know, we touch that knowingness within, and all that we know around us, as seen by the senses and constructed by the mind, crumbles into a dust of pure artificiality, and life appears as it is supposed to be, grandiose, intimately and infinitely connected. Call that source, God, or love, or the universe, it matters not. We know, we just know, we're a part of it.